Committee. Great to see so many of you as I'm looking out at the screen. I wish we were here in the Chestnut rooms together on campus, but we're doing our best. This is a session by Dr. Steve and Issac Bickmore, and with us are Angela Messenger, a member of the Festival Committee, and Stacy Graber, a member of the Festival Committee, and we're ready to get started. I want to give a very brief introduction to these two gentlemen and then turn it loose. Steve Bickmore is an associate professor in the Department of Teaching and Learning at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and a longtime advocate for young adult literature. The former president of the Adolescent Literature Assembly of NCTE, Steve hosts the popular YA Wednesday blog, runs the UNLV Summit on the research and teaching of young adult literature, and has twice visited our English Festival on campus. Steve's son, Issac Bickmore, is an assistant professor of music education at Missouri Central University. Along with teaching college students to become music teachers, he helped create a startup called Groovebotics, which aimed to make programmable robots to help kids learn basic principles of coding through creative musical play. I love that concept, Issac. Issac also reads and writes about young adult literature and teaches, among other things, a course in the history of rock and roll. A note before Steve and Issac begin their talk: we hope to have some time for questions at the end. While the two are speaking, feel free to send questions through the chat function, and my colleague Stacy Graber will review them and ask the Bickmores as many as possible in our remaining time. Steve and Issac Bickmore, welcome to the 2021 YSU English Festival. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and we're thrilled for this opportunity. For me, it still feels like I'm early in the morning. So, you know, I'm on the West Coast, so that's going to do this. What we're going to do is we're going to bounce this back and forth between the two of us. And Issac is going to share the screen with the PowerPoint, and then I'll be sharing the screen with some YouTube videos from time to time. But we want to say, as we get started and think about this, that we're well aware of the issues and the trauma that have been facing America over the last little while. And for many of you, and some of you are people that you know, you may have also been worried about some of the things that have been going on contemporarily. And that, in fact, March has never been more relevant than it is now. And we want you to know that we're aware of that. And as two white males, understanding our privilege, we're stepping into the world of people who are more actively doing this protest in the spirit of John Lewis and his colleagues from a half a century ago and more now when we think about this. But we first presented this presentation a year ago, shortly after the murder of George Floyd, and it was with a lot of trepidation and anxiety that we were presenting last year. And so some of that continues to go on today. And protest by courageous people is not new. And as you can see there, that many people forget this, and it's highlighted in March from time to time. The protest movement was not only old people, it was young people. Throughout Mississippi and others, there's a teachers march, and there were young people marching all over doing that. So we feel it's important to note that moment. And one of the things that we'll mention right early on is, if you've read March and you think, man, this guy is a great artist, many of the pictures in March are direct copies of the photographs by a man named Spider Martin. And that's something else that we can put Spider Martin's webpage in there, and they got permission to use at will any of his photographs and copy them as they go through there. So one of the things we're trying to do today is show you that a reaction to a book or an event or any text, and I define text as anything that you can interpret: a television show, a conversation, a movie, an observation in a mall. All those things are text for me. And as students, you are exposed to all kinds of texts. Some of them you're interested in, and some of them you're not. What we want you to do is feel free to respond in any text you see in imaginative and creative ways. And the way we're going to kind of model today is how students and others, the authors of this book, March, and the illustrators responded in many ways using music. And we're going to point to some of that as we go. So Isaac?
Yeah, so I will say that we encourage you to stand up for things that you believe in as well. So, and I think John Lewis would do the same. You may or may not be familiar with his term good trouble and getting into good trouble. We definitely encourage you to do the same. Find out things that you believe in and that you want to stand up for, and stand up and make some noise. And I like noise because I'm a music teacher. And so that is my segue into what we're talking about, right? Stand up, make some noise. And here we are talking about music and March. So we're going to use this graphic novel, and we understand that some of you have read maybe all three of these, or maybe just book 3. And we would like to talk about how music and graphic novels might work together, and how you might be able to make like a mashup or a remix of this graphic novel. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next slide here. Let's see. There we are. Okay. So this is from an article by a professor of mine, Dr. Evan Tobias, and he was researching the many different ways people work with music and other media online in what we call our participatory culture. And so if you want, you can give a thumbs up if you've ever witnessed any one of these things. Have you ever seen on YouTube a cover? Somebody covering a song? You can give a thumbs up. Have you ever seen somebody arranging a song, maybe using computer? There's a guy I watch on YouTube who's called iSongs. He arranges songs on his iPhone. Have you ever seen somebody make a parody of a song? Yes. Have you ever seen satire in music? Maybe they're making fun of a politician, or maybe they're doing something about a cultural event and they're making fun of it. Yes. What about multi-tracking? This is where they have one person or multiple people, but they're using that app called Acapella or something like that, where it's like different people singing all in the same screen. Yep, you've seen it. Okay, people remix. You've probably seen a remix. Sample-based producing, where they're using samples of sound from across the world and making music out of it. Or mashups, where they take 2 songs and mash them together. Or if you ever watched a musical tutorial, Amelia, your thumbs up are excellent. They're the ones that I can see, but because I can't see everybody when I'm sharing my screen, but thank you, Amelia. And remediating, this is where people take like a movie and they take clips from the movie, or they take a video game and they make music out of it. Or maybe they make a video game character do something musical in a video game. Like you could film yourself or on a Twitch stream doing like a Minecraft music video or something. So those are the kinds of things that's remediating. And then of course, commenting and discussing. So now I want to know in the chat, have you ever commented on a YouTube video about music? So go ahead and put that in the chat if you want. Or if you're in a big room with a bunch of other people, you can just like give a thumbs up or something. I'm trying to see if Dr. Tobias's research is true. Are people really doing these things? Okay, okay. It looks like, yes, people have seen those things. I'm just going to look at the chat here. Yes, yes, yes. Lots of yes. No. Somebody said no. Thank you. Okay, cool. But it looks like people are confirming Dr. Tobias's research. That's good. Okay. And there at Canfield High School says that they enjoy engaging with music. Okay, so as an example of this kind of stuff, we're going to choose one song that I feel has a lot to do with March. And I've got my copies of March right here. And I just, we chose a song by Janelle Monáe and her group Wonderland that came out in 2015 as a response to the many killings of young Black people by police. And so she has a song called Hell You Talking About. And in that song, it is a protest song. And in the song, they list the names of people, and then they ask us to say their names. They repeatedly ask us to say their names so that we won't forget. And I think the title has to do with the idea that if you're not talking about this, if you're not talking about these people who have lost their lives, what in the hell are you talking about, right? And so
I think your chat box is over the slide.
Oh, I didn't know you guys could see that. Can you also see the people above?
No, it's blacked, but it blocks it. There you go.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So thank you. So we're gonna, this is a way I think about it, right? You've got this network of media all over the world, and there's ways that those things can connect, right? So we've got March the book, and we've got this song by Janelle Monáe, and you could connect those or not through different types of engagement, right? You have dance, you have remixes, you have remediation and mashups. And there's other things. See, these are all left blank because you could think about things that connect to March that maybe we haven't thought about.
Well, let
right?
me give you an example of that. For example, March exists, but also the movie Glory, the movie, that you have things that have come out, and you've got Common or Legend doing things with music that would be connected, or films about John Lewis or the Martin Luther King era. All are connected to March. They would be different nodes. And the way that Issac has showed music going from one side of the slide to the other to Hell You Talk About, there could be these nodes that would connect to movies or art or other representations.
Right. Or you could think about stuff from other cultures, like a movie about Nelson Mandela, or a book about Nelson Mandela, or a poem about Nelson Mandela. Like there's lots of different ways that you could connect, right? Or other songs that could do the same thing. Okay, I think the next thing is a video. Let me just see. And Dad, we were going to show this video first, right?
Yeah, and you show it through your slide if it'll go.
Okay, so this is the version of Janelle Monáe and Wonderland performing Hell You Talking About.
And if we were there in person, we would have you all stand up.
So there's just a little taste of it, but now I'm going to turn it over to my dad. I'm going to stop sharing. And he's got a bunch of different ways that people have worked with or engaged with that song, and engaged with it in all those ways that we listed. So go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dad.
We're going to try to share and do this and get my clips on. Okay. So I think you can see this one, and I'm going to start playing.
Dad, can you turn down your volume?
Sure. I'm going to play this up this was a concert that was really done pretty recently by David Byrne's group of people, and they have this going on. Now we have all of these links where you can find them. Here's a guy in his garage, here's a guy in his bedroom, here's people out in public, all taking this one song and repurposing it in a way that shows how other people have added on to the conversation through their music and through their art. So I'm going to stop sharing, but that'll give you an idea of all the things you can start looking at.
So that was a lot of stuff. Could you hear what he was saying? Yeah.
So we'll go over it again then.
Yeah, we could just talk about it. So what I want to know is, what did you see? Put in the chat, please, the ways that people were engaging with it. So I'll just give you one, just as an example of what I saw. I saw one person playing the drums, doing a drum cover. So somebody already put sick rip on the bass guitar. So put what you saw. And maybe if you're in a big group, you can talk about it together and say, something that you noticed. What did you notice?
Emotionally invested, yes. It's the dance movements of people moving on the stage. We hope you noticed also that some of these covers were people adding photographs,
slideshow.
Right?
Yep, the slideshow. They noticed
those things that become tributes to the people that they're talking about, right?
Yeah, memorials, like they're making, memorial tributes. Yep.
Oh, I love Millie that said there's a sense of urgency. I think that's true, that every time I've seen every variation of Janelle Monáe doing this, it sounds urgent. I think that's a really good word. Whether it's, in a club or out in a park where they're doing this, the urgency of it is very important that's going on. I think that's really a good observation. I'm going to write that word down and use it some more, urgent.
And then interacting physically, right? I think, did you show some of the dance ones?
We haven't done dance. We're not there yet. We're going to dance later.
But there were people moving, right?
Yes,
They're moving and swaying together. Yes. Yes. All of those things happening at once? Yeah. We wanted to show it like that because we wanted to show that there's so many different ways of doing it, and we have more. So, Dad, do you want to show? My dad was getting into it. Is that what you're saying, Samantha?
Yeah.
He can get with the funk. That's true.
Yeah, that's true. One of the things we want to tell you is that we're going to put a link later that has links to all the videos we're using, so that you can have them and you can then explore on your own some of these videos. But what we're going to do right now is show you, and I'll try not to talk over it so much, a bunch of videos where they're dancing, and they dance to this. So we're going to get the right screen, and we're going to share, and then we'll start them.
Won't you say his name? Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, won't you say his name? Say his name.
One of the things I like about this one is it highlights individuals, but everyone around is also participating, and it's multi-age. You've got all these people dancing in different ways, right? Some common moves. This is taking place with this one in the Ebenezer Baptist Church. For those of you that know the history of March, this is the church that Martin Luther King spoke at. Right here, these are people dancing in that church as a performance. And you can see in the screen, as part of this meeting, and showing the pictures to the people.
Say his name. Sean Bell. Say his name. Sean Bell. Say his name. Sean Bell. Won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Won't you say his name?
Now, for me, I could look at this for a long time because I think this is just so exciting to see people do the performance and do the music. But you can't do everything all the time, right? But again, how are you celebrating the lives of these people that have been lost too early and in circumstances that are even hard to understand? I'm sure that Dr. Salvner and others in my generation, we see images of the March on Selma, and we can hardly believe that it took place. And then at the same time, we see how readily some version of it is still taking place, right? And so we try to wrap our minds around 60 years of protest and wonder if there's been any difference. And we're still arguing over what do voting rights mean? What does speaking up for yourself mean? And can you do this? I'll share you a little story about this that I keep wanting. It's maybe a poem. It happened yesterday afternoon, and I teach yesterday afternoon. And of course, there was a verdict announced. And shortly after that verdict, I was with my wife sitting in a restaurant on the patio across from the university. And a young black man crossed the street, and he was jaywalking. And I panicked. Because that moment, I've jaywalked across a lot of streets and nothing has ever happened to me. And I thought, what if this guy is crossing the street illegally and somebody's angry and a policeman pulls him over? Could his life change in ways that we can't imagine because he didn't walk another 100 paces to the corner? Now, I didn't confront him or talk about him, but I thought nothing would have happened to me or Isaac if we'd have crossed the street illegally. We might have made somebody angry. We might have got a ticket. He might have pulled over and shaken his finger at us. But that's all that would have happened. But I wondered about that. And so that image in my mind might be a poem someday. It might be something that I write about in an essay. But I think, so how do we participate? How is that moment? And he did nothing but walk across the street because he wanted a quick way to get to the restaurant, probably the same one we were in. So that's one of the ways I've reacted to these moments of these things. I'm not Janelle Monáe. I'm not going to come up with a quick riff and a way to put it to music, right? But in my own mind, I might figure out another way to put it in a poem or a piece of art. Okay, Isaac, back to you.
Well, so now we're going to ask you again, what is your favorite mode of art? What is your favorite way of expression? Some of you might be artists, so please tell us in the chat. What do you like to do creatively? Oh, look at that. It's blowing up.
Yeah.
Eating.
I'm with that.
Me too, Emily. I express myself through eating all the time. Photography, yeah. Sewing, awesome.
Oh, yes, I love this. Paint, watercolor. Yeah, you guys are doing, this is exactly what we want to do. And for many of you, I see the people at Heartland and everywhere else, you maybe don't get to do that in your schools as much as we think you should.
Yeah, and one of the things that we hope
is if your teachers are not suggesting creative and alternate ways to respond, you might start subtly suggesting other ways in which you might be assessed. You can say, I really feel like I could tell you what I feel about this piece of work that I read, or art that we're evaluating, or the short story that we read. I could tell you more honestly what I feel about if I had an alternate form. But you can't be lazy. You can't say, oh, I just want to feel about it and tell you later that I felt about it. You know,
Yeah.
creativity requires hard work and diligence and commitment. So you can't just say, I'm tired of writing an essay, because, you know, some of the things you might choose to do might tax you in more ways than writing a traditional essay. And
Do
that's
any of
okay.
you like filmmaking? Do you like to make movies or think about movies? One of the things that we hope is that you can talk to your teachers when you read a graphic novel, or if you're thinking about March, maybe you're in the middle of doing that right now. You might think of a piece of art that you could make in response to March, right? Maybe it's a dance, maybe it's a Minecraft video, maybe it's a music cover. Who knows what it might be, right? I think we have one more. Let me just see here. One
back
more
to
video
the-
to show. I want to make sure I have the right one. We have so many. Here we go. I'm just going to share again. We want to show a little bit longer clip, just one video this time, not a billion, just one. And it's a school that put together a film and they added things. So it's not just a cover of the song. They added other spoken voice things. They added dancing. It's definitely got a framing in it and a color scheme and all of these things. So kind of think about the effort that would have taken for this group of people to make this piece of art. So here we go. I'm going to share here. And I'm going to present.
We got pulled over for a busted tail light in the back.
Told not to beat his friend. Told to get his hand up.
He killed my boyfriend.
Teaching both the theoretical aspects of nonviolence as well as the practical application.
Took away a man with children who depended upon their daddy on a daily basis.
Your history is extremely uncomfortable for America. They'd rather shrug you off or shoot you dead in cold blood. You remind America that they still haven't done right by you. You're powerful, brothers and sisters. And never forget your power of choice. And while your humanity appears to be at risk, remember that you are divine and that you have the power to choose. To choose how you react, how you walk, how you talk, how you protest, how you spend your money. Let's start thinking about these new rituals as we move forward.
John Crawford.
Here,
Tanisha Anderson.
here,
Dante Parker.
here,
Tamir Rice.
here,
Tony Robinson.
here.
I think there is contagious quality in a movement like this when everybody talks about nonviolence and being faithful to it and being dignified in your resistance. It tends to get over to the larger group.
Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, won't you say his name? Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, won't you say his name? Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 won't you say his name? Trayvon Martin, say his name. Trayvon Martin, say his name. Trayvon Martin, say his name. Trayvon Martin, won't you say his name? Sean Bell, say his name. Sean Bell, say his name. Sean Bell, say his name. Sean Bell, won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Won't you say his name?
Freddie Gray, say his name. Freddie Gray, say his name. Ayanna Jones, say her name. Ayanna Jones, won't you say her name? Sandra Bland, say her name. Sandra Bland, say her name. Sandra Bland, say her name. Sandra Bland, won't you say her name? Say her name. 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 Won't you say her name?
Okay, Isaac, let's go to see if we're pushing time, not quite yet, but we can go. We have a couple more moves for you that we want to show. And I loved how some of you people are admiring the talent of those people. And I put in the chat, well, maybe I didn't hit it yet. I just put in the chat, well, you may think an individual has talent, it should be inspirational. Never stop from the opportunity to try something, because you may not know what you can do, right? And if you think, oh, that person is so talented, I can't do that. That's what rough drafts are for. I'm fond of saying there's no such thing as writing. There's only rewriting. If I had to be held accountable for everything that I kind of wrote once, well, that would be a tragedy, right? But there's no reason that we can't explore going forward and seeing what you can do. Like Isaac's mother and I, we didn't know he could sing until he joined choir. And then we went to performance and went, oh, the boy can sing. You know, we'd heard him sing at church and do some of those things, but he was pursuing an interest to the degree that we didn't really quite understand. And now it's become a career for him. And I sometimes wonder about that. Why didn't we ever notice that he was that inclined towards music in some ways? We thought he was inclined to joke around and be the funny guy and the kind person in the house, but not the musical demon that he is now, right? So you want to show those PowerPoints again? We want to go to March and inside the book a little bit here.
Yeah, because we kind of have strayed away from March, right? But maybe not so much, right? Because the Janelle Monáe song is very much tied to March because it's protest music. And one of the things that we found as we were reading March is that it talks a lot about music, maybe not directly, but there's music on the pages. So we wanted to show you some of that. For instance, let me just hit present here so you can see. Yeah, there we go. We've got, here he is getting ready to go to Barack Obama's inauguration, and he's singing. You can take my freedom, oh yes, but you cannot take my dignity. And then here's a page where they're singing We Shall Overcome as they go to jail, and they're singing in jail. Sorry. And they sang for a long time. That story is great, actually, that part. And then here's a Fannie Lou Hamer song, This Little Light of Mine, or she's famous for singing it anyways. I'm out in the dark, I'm gonna let it shine. They were excited when they were, I think this is the point, I don't know exactly what this point, I think that people were singing outside of the jail. Go ahead, Dad.
I think that last slide, if you go back, was part of the teacher's march that accompanied all this, if you say that too there. But if you go, you can see all these things, the songs here. And maybe when you were reading the book, you thought, oh, these are just songs. These were the songs that were sung and accompanied the protest. And you can find them. And many of these we'll reference in the Google Doc that we're gonna share with you, so you can see those. But that's a whole nother research project, right? Who's singing which song when, and what did it mean for those people to be singing those songs at that particular time? And it's also a great place to see the number of allies that are there. Many of these songs were sung by white artists who were accompanying these movements. Joan Baez, Peter, Paul and Mary, Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan. So there's ways in which people have been allies to this movement all along. And maybe that's a way you can contribute. If you don't feel like it touches you directly, but you're interested and involved, you can be an ally. And I think it's important for people to remember that.
And they use music a bunch of different ways in the book. And all of these songs you could find on YouTube. You could just Google the lyrics and you'd be able to find somebody somewhere singing the song. And you might be able to find as many versions of each song as we were showing you of the Janelle Monáe song, right? People doing all kinds of different things with it. And so music is a big part of the book, but it's also just a big part of the protest movement and civil rights, and it always has been across many different cultures. Music is important in civil rights struggles across the world. Here's a quote from Martin Luther King: "The freedom songs are playing a strong and vital role in our struggle," said Martin Luther King Jr. during the Albany movement. "They give the people new courage and a sense of unity. I think they keep alive a faith, a radiant hope in the future, particularly in our most trying hours." And then here is, there's a page, and this is like my dad was talking about the Spider Martin, right? Spider Martin photos. This is one of those moments where you can see the photo and then see how it's represented in the graphic novel. So Mahalia Jackson was very close to Dr. King, and she sang right before he delivered his speech. She's saying, "How I got over, and I've been buked, and I've been scorned." And then in the recording, you can hear her shout, "Tell them about the dream, Martin," during his speech. And so music was a big part of it, I guess is what we're saying. And then here we go. One of the things.
Can I talk about that a little bit more, Isaac?
Sure, go ahead.
That moment when Martin Luther King was speaking in the famous speech on the Mall in Washington in front of the Lincoln Memorial, the first few minutes or seconds of it were not going well, and he was struggling. And Mahalia Jackson then from the back says, "Tell him about the dream," because he'd given that speech about a dream a couple of times before. And when he listens to her and he shifts the tone, that changes. And if you watch the speech from the beginning, you can see the shift. And in some versions of the recordings, you can hear her. But she was a source of inspiration from him. He tells the story often that sometimes in the middle of the night, when he was sitting and couldn't sleep, and his wife was talking to him, he would call Mahalia Jackson and ask her to sing a gospel song. So the very notion that some of the people that we think of inspirational and moving this also sought inspiration from other people, right? So he seeks inspiration from this gospel singer that's famous in her own right, for doing that. But the movement doesn't exist without her. It's not multidimensional without Mahalia Jackson. John Lewis's life is not multidimensional without Andrew Young and Martin himself and all the other people that are involved. So to think of these things, and John Lewis would be the first one to tell you that he was not the sole movement of all this work. Was he important? Was he instrumental? Absolutely. But it didn't exist because of him alone. It existed as a collective, right? So how are you helping each other? What can you do together? What projects might you do together? Who can provide art? Who can provide music, right? Who can provide editing? Maybe you can help each other.
Yeah, maybe there could be like a Youngstown civil rights art project thing. And you could have a gallery show or a presentation, and then the proceeds could go to help a cause that you all agree with, or a cause that needs help. So you can actually mobilize your talents and your interests to help other people. That's a thought, right? That's something that we hope can come out of education and art. And along those lines, I just wanted to show this picture of John Lewis before I show you a video I made. I wanted to do a little demonstration of how easy it can be to remix elements of things that come from march and music. So I'm gonna show a video I made of how to use GarageBand on your iPhone. And I know not everybody has iPhones, but if you do have an iPhone, I wanna show you how easy it is to make music. And if you have an Android phone, I have apps that can help you and point you towards those, but I only have an iPhone. So I'm gonna show you what I made, just so you can see how easy it is to do stuff with music. So I'm gonna pull that up real quick. Okay. So I'm just gonna walk you through this. Most of it's silent. So you can go to your opening screen and choose live loops. So I'll just show you that again real quick. You have tracks or live loops. I'm using the live loops function. So then you get into it and you can edit squares. So you'll see I touch a square over here and I hit loops. And then I've imported files into the my phone.
Something is happening in our world.
And then I can put that file right there.
Wake up, wake up.
And I jumped ahead there. And so basically what are in these 4 squares down at the bottom right are little clips of people that I found inspiring that I was reminded of because of this book. So I've got Fannie Lou Hamer in this first square. She's a singer and a protester and a voting rights advocate from the 60s. And then I've got Martin Luther King, and then 2 John Lewis quotes, and then I add another John Lewis quote, and I'll show you how I did that. So over here in the left-hand corner, just some GarageBand stuff. When you're in live loops, if you click this button in the bottom left-hand corner, it allows you to edit any of these squares. So I'm gonna show you what that looks like. So I click edit, and I bring it over here, and the sound that I downloaded.
We must wake up, wake up, wake up. We cannot stop, and we will not.
Bye, Voicey.
We must wake up, wake up.
So the sound that I downloaded had a little watermark at the end, like some bye, Voicey, or whatever. So I wanted to get rid of that, and I was just showing you how you do that. You just click and drag.
We cannot.
And then I got rid of it.
Dr. King and Rosa Parks inspired me to get in good trouble.
So I wanted to get that good trouble clip. So that good trouble clip is
But
at the
Dr.
end
King
here.
and Rosa Parks inspired me to get in good trouble.
So I figured out that I wanted to, okay, I had to
But
stop
Dr.
it,
King
just
and
play it.
Rosa Parks.
And then I go down to the end and I say, this is the good trouble part. So I'm just gonna split this clip here. So I clicked on the clip and I clicked right where I wanted it to be. And then it gives you the option to split. So you split the clip like that. You just drag the scissors down. Took me a second to remember how to do it. And then you drag the scissors down and it's clipped. And then I copied that and I pasted it right there in another square.
You can pray until you faint. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people arise.
But Dr. King and Rosa Parks inspired.
And then I was like, okay, that's not loud enough. Let's move it down to this track. And then I tried it again, turned off the editing.
Good trouble.
Okay, so there you go. That's kind of a little demo, and you probably have questions about how I did all that, and that's okay. But the idea, I just wanted to give you the idea that each one of those squares in GarageBand, that's a free app. Like GarageBand is a free app on any iPhone. You could put sound in each one of those squares. You could start with a blank screen and just say, I've got all these clips from YouTube. Give me a thumbs up if you know how to turn a YouTube into an MP3. So who's done that before? You've used the YouTube converter, YouTube to MP3. You'll have to ask your friends. It's pretty easy to do. And that's one of the ways that I get sound from the world is I'm like, oh, because you can find sound for anything on YouTube, right? You can find speeches, you can find songs, you can find news clips, anything you want. And so you could find any of those and YouTube to MP3 it and then import it into your phone. Yeah, Clip Grab's one of them, or I think YouTube to MP3 is another. It's just a website. And then you could make a whole array of sounds, right? And I just used a preset one of the live loops. I just clicked on hip hop and it had a bunch of songs in there, but you could use your own music. Yeah, you can get viruses from doing it. That's why I don't recommend necessarily that you do it. But there are other resources like archive.org is a place where you can find sounds. And you can get the Library of Congress. You can ask for sounds. It takes a little bit of time, but they will send you digital sounds. So there's lots of places you can find sound. But the idea being that, just in your pocket, you could make music and remix it with sound from the civil rights movement or from now. And Dad, what else do we have?
I think, well, that's the key thing to do is learning can be play. And one of the things we've done is suggest a bunch of things you can do. You can draw, you can dance, you can make music, you can use the music that other people have made. Like, so when Isaac does that, for me, that looks like a foreign language. I barely can turn on my phone, right? Let alone use it like that. But some of you are in a completely different generation and relationship to technology. And what we're inviting you to do is explore and play and see what you can learn to do. And I think if you do that, you'll find that there's lots of things that can keep you entertained in ways that will engage your active curiosity about you owning your own learning. And that's the most important thing any teacher can give you, is the opportunity to demonstrate that you are owning what you learn. There's a lot of stuff we want you to learn, but what do you want to learn? What will help you understand the world in richer ways? What will help you help your friends, your family, your community? What will help you understand and live and perform in that community in productive ways, right? What can you do? And if you're not asking those questions, then you're probably not pushing the boundaries of what you can do individually. The last 3 years I taught, I had that across the top of my board. Own your own learning. Because I can guide and direct you all I want, but until you own your own learning, you're probably not exploring the limits of your possibilities in ways that you probably should. We have about 5 minutes. Are there questions you'd like to ask us? Because we can certainly show you another video. We can show you another group dancing. We can show you all kinds of things. We can give you a list of things to find good trouble. I put in the chat a link to all the videos that we've used, plus some more. We've given you links to civil rights songs that show you the top 10 civil rights songs of the era. I've also added a link at the very bottom to similar resources about using gun violence that I've done with some colleagues. That's a web page that you can go to and see how people talk about and react to and write about and teach about gun violence as well. So there's all things. This is not the only topic. It doesn't have to be march and music. It can be march and film, march and art, and it can be something else. It could be the grapes of wrath and walking across America. What does that mean to walk across America to find opportunity? So anybody, did we catalog any questions, Stacy, or we had them so enthralled they didn't have time for questions, right? I think you're on mute, Stacy. There.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, actually, this has been so interactive. You know, you've been engaging with comments and questions throughout. So I'm just keeping posted right now and waiting. For example, you know, one student writes, "This has been interesting and inspiring. And thank you both very much."
Steve, do you want to play one more video as a way to kind of
I
go
have,
out?
yeah, I have one more that I wanted to show you. I love how this one starts. So I'll share one more as we're talking, and you can start watching this one. Yeah, everything's ready. And it's just one for me, so. Hell you talking about? Hell you talking about? Hell you talking
Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, won't you say his name? Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, won't you say his name? Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Say his name.
See, you can't tell me that there's not creativity, there's not thought, there's not emotion, there's not power in the creation of that video, right? And these are people that are saying, we're dancers, or we want to be dancers. How can we express and join this conversation? And it becomes very powerful. Clearly, they understand what they're talking about. Clearly, they're relating to the people that they're voicing and then they're naming. So I think it can be very powerful. It's very, for me, it's humbling to watch people do these kinds of things that I don't think I could do in some ways. So one of the remarkable things, and I'm sure everybody that's a teacher in this room, or if you ask your teachers, you should ask your teachers, have you ever had a moment when you've been absolutely humbled and astonished by the creativity of your students? And that has happened to me more times than I can even imagine. Isaac was in a class, he was my student once, when I was talking about avant-garde art in a humanities class and performance art, and Jenny Lord stood on the table and performed art. Do you remember, Isaac, where she...
Didn't it have to do with, didn't she have mustard and she was spraying mustard?
Protesting school lunch. And so that by the time she was done standing on her desk, and I had tables, her school lunch was full of mustard and several other things. And we all understood what she was talking about. But rather than listening to me pontificate about performance art, Jenny Lord just stood up and did performance art, right? And clearly I understood in a moment there that she knew exactly what I was talking about and saw a way in which she could share that with something that was bothering her, right? She was bothered by school lunch all the time. And so she was sharing her feelings about that.
And just remember that some people get really snooty about art. Like they get really like, oh yes, art is very important and you can't make it until you've known everything. That's just not true. Art is a practice. So if you like art, any kind of art, music, painting, drawing, eating, all of those things, you just have to do it. Just make art. Not because it's going to be amazing and you're going to share it with the world, but because it helps you process your emotions and the things you're feeling and thinking about.
Yes. As we're wrapping up here, that students, I think you might remember this. We have contests in creating original art and original music and graphic essays in response to the books. And so next year, I hope you're back with us and use this as a kind of incentive to create an original piece that you can submit to one of our contests or more than one. We'd love to get your entries, and we'd love to hear your work, see your work, study and listen to what you've got to tell us through those pieces. So I think we're good.